They want you to pay your good money to watch this fight in the UFC 293 main card, Matt. We have Tyson Pedro taking on the pleasure man, Anton Turkalj. And in this fight, Matt, Turkalj wins on Dana White's Contender Series 2021 in week 1, but he wasn't B. Joe Pyfer. He had a boring fight against Acacio de Santos, took him down in 11 of 14 attempts, and it wasn't all that fun to watch. And this is a Turkalj that was a Swedish wrestling champ. He trains out of All-Stars with, it's back. No Time Volkan Oezdemir, Khamzat Chimaev, and the like. Turkalj's UFC debut on short notice at a catchweight. Takes on Jailton Almeida, gets submitted. He had a fight of the night against Vitor Petrino his last time out. 30-26 and two 30-27s. Some back and forth in the grappling. Petrino was able to get the win. But for Turkalj, we definitely haven't seen the best of him. He's lost these 2 UFC fights, looking to get back to his winning ways. And Turkalj's last win that was outside of the kind of Zuffa or Endeavor banner, he goes out there against Konstantin Soldatov with Brave. Throws a head kick that misses and then spins out of the head kick and throws a back fist.
It was so cool.
And knocks out Soldatov. You knew Turkalj for big throws, big wrestling actions, and he is a fun fighter when he can get his ground and pound going because unlike some of these other fighters that are on this card on the prelims that struggle with like their hip position and their overall top pressure, kind of like Felipe de Santos is higher up on this card after this fight, Turkalj's got really good top position. He's really heavy there and he can land a lot of ground and pound. And for Tyson Pedro, you knew him for his jiu-jitsu. You knew him for his karate coming into the UFC. And from 2018 to 2022, he had that long layoff, the knee injuries and so on. He gets wins over Ike Villanueva and Harry Hunsucker. One at heavyweight, one at light heavyweight. His last time out, he was a pretty darn big favorite taking on Modestas Bukauskas. And in that one, 30-27.
That was a close fight, actually.
2 for Bukauskas in the win. And for Tyson Pedro, it almost seems like he kind of slowed down a little bit as that fight went on against Bukauskas.
I'm not a big this guy should have won, that guy should have won, but that was a really close fight. I know you bring up there was a 30-27 in there, but like those guys were real tit for tat with their striking. And Pedro did score a couple takedowns of his own in that matchup, so it's a much closer fight than how Craig may have just described it, is all I want to say. This has been my problem with Tyson Pedro his whole career, though. He's just kind of fought people at the same level. Like, when is the Tyson Pedro push really going to happen to where we can get convinced, okay?
Are you kidding?
No, he fought Shogun that one time, and that was really a bit...
And OSP, that's when they were trying to push Tyson Pedro.
They were, but the problem was, okay, he got to that level, had one injury, and for the most part, he's just kind of fought guys who were well outside of the top 15.
Because they were trying to build him back.
I understand, but he had multiple wins there. And Bukauskas, that's a good opponent, don't get me wrong, to people like us. But a former middleweight who moved up to 205 and you having a close fight with him isn't the performance that people want to see. I just think for Tyson Pedro, like, when is it going to happen to where you are going to become that contender?
Who is a former middleweight?
Bukauskas.
No, he's
sorry.
always a late
My bad. But my point with Pedro is he should have beaten guys like Bukauskas if we were going to be convinced that he was that top-tier prospect. I know he had that crazy fight with Khalil Rountree coming off the Ultimate Fighter. He gets dropped by Khalil in the first round of that fight, and then he's able to get the rear naked choke win himself. It's just for Pedro, he has skills in every area of MMA, be it on the feet, on the mat, or with his wrestling, but he also has deficiencies in all those areas too that we have seen taken advantage of. And that's why I've always had a hard time with Pedro. Is he a great striker on the outside? Yeah, he is. But we've also seen him get tagged by other good strikers on the outside. Does he have good offensive wrestling? Of course he does. But guys like Ali Latifi were able to take him down multiple times in their matchup, and he really didn't have an answer for it. And even with his submissions, we haven't seen him just get convincingly out-grappled for the most part, but he's not so good at submissions to where it's a one-hit, one-kill when he's able to get it on the mat. I just think with Pedro, there's a lot of pieces to like, don't get me wrong, but behind every single one of those pieces that you do enjoy, there is a weakness there as well.
Well, the 2 opening UFC wins for Tyson Pedro, Rountree and Paul Craig, both being first-round wins, those age really well in a vacuum. You look at the fight against Saperbek Safarov, who was able to work the takedowns, and then you have the submission win for Pedro. You look at the fight against OSP, in the next fight, he drops OSP, and then he gets caught in that arm lock. So, again, they build him back up, getting the wins over Villanueva and Hunsucker, and he was supposed to take on Zhang Mingyang, who was a fighter that fought on a one-time road to UFC card. And then that fight fell out. But if you look at it, yeah, the loss to Bukauskas for Turkalj, a lot of the takedowns. And even in his fights against Herkeletics over with Brave, a 41-year-old Greek fighter. He runs across the cage, lands a flying knee, gets a takedown. I watched Anton Turkalj fight with RXF in his opening pro fight. runs in, flying knee, works the takedown. So that was a big thing for Turkalj on the regional scene. We'll see what he's able to do in this fight. Pedro is a slight favorite, fighting close to home in Australia, minus 130 favorite. Oda City Kickboxing. If you look at it for the Topology vote, Matt, I'm going to say over under 72.5% Tyson Pedro.
I think it'll be under that.
And it's slightly under. 1,022 total votes, 69% Pedro, 59% by knockout. For the 31% that have Turkalj, 60% by decision. Matt, I think Anton Turkalj wins one of the more boring fights that you're going to find on this card, and I've got the pleasure man to pick up his first UFC win.
I have Tyson Pedro to win, but if you can't tell from the way that I've talked about this fight, I've sold all my Tyson Pedro stock, and I'm a guy who still is invested in Dante Exum. Back in the league, by the way, with the Dallas Mavericks. So I have Pedro to win the fight, because I think if Turkalj does get repetitive with a lot of those takedown attempts, Pedro does have the other skills in his game to start countering it with shots on the outside, and at least maybe try to go for some submissions to make it uncomfortable so he's not so repetitive with those strikes. But Turkalj has a great chance to win. If he is able to rinse and repeat with those takedowns, then I don't know if Pedro is going to have the defensive wrestling to get back to his feet that consistently.
Both of us are split on the pick. I'm going with the fact that I think Pedro's going to lose to another Swedish fighter, and Matt going with the fighter fighting at home. So Matt with Pedro, me with Turkalj. Some big-time bouts on this card, including a rematch in a fight that ended by an eye poke. We have Austen Lane taking on Justin Tafa. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.